The water war is very serious. Water is going to be extremely serious within the next 40 years. Literature I have here says in 2050 there's going to be a serious gap between the available water and the amount of water that is going to be needed based on the growth of Georgia. So it's very serious. One of the more serious things to me, not only the sprawl, but the amount of pollution that we're putting into our waters. Let's see. The Savannah River ranks as one of the 10 most toxic rivers in the country. 2,087 of Georgia's waterways that have been assessed so far in 2010, over 52% are too polluted to be used for fishing, swimming, and drinking. Over 50% of 2,087 waterways. That's over 1,000 waterways that are too polluted to fish, drink, or swim in. 106 lakes and rivers have fish consumption advisories for pollution as of 2010. The result is not surprising, as industries and municipal wastewater treatment plants routinely exceed permitted levels of pollution by discharging untreated sewage, high levels of fecal matter, and dangerous pollutants such as cyanide, lead, and zinc into Georgia's rivers and lakes. For example, more than 150 municipal and industrial treatment facilities discharge into the upper Chattahoochee River Basin. In 2007, industrial facilities were responsible for dumping more than 10 million pounds of toxic chemicals into Georgia's waterways. Industrial facilities, not properly regulated industrial facilities, and put 10 million pounds of toxic chemicals into Georgia's waterways. I will provide money for Atlanta to conserve, but I'll also make them have incentives to preserve, because I want to increase fines for people that pollute. And I will appeal to the 47 other states, because our natural resources of Georgia are the same type of resources that they're going to depend on. As a nation, we need to address this pollution problem.
All right, thank you, Mr. Saunders. Ms. Duke, you would have the next question, please. For this one, Mr. Saunders will be asked to respond first.
Thank you. Retired or disabled women comprise the largest percentage of Georgians in poverty. There's been much discussion of changes to Social Security benefits in the next session of Congress, even though Social Security is one of the few programs with a surplus. At last count, the surplus exceeded $2.5 trillion. This issue is of great concern to those who have already retired or approaching retirement age. What is your position on A, raising the retirement age, or B, raising or reducing monthly benefits?
That's easy. I would never raise the retirement age, and I would never reduce your benefits. And how I would handle the Social Security crisis is protect it and never privatize it. And I would release the cap that they're placing on withholdings. Evidently, there's a cap on withholdings. If you make $100,000 or $200,000, they stop withholding at $200,000, even if you make $1 million. So people making $2 million are only withholding on $200,000. If you collect the amount of Social Security that is required by everyone else, then you won't have a problem. You'll have even more of a surplus. And we definitely need to protect it, because we know there are people in Washington that will steal money if they can get a hold of it. You know, that's one of the first things I learned when I collected a paycheck, was that I probably will never see my Social Security. And I said, wow, really? I'm 16 years old. It's like 1984, 83, listening to Quiet Riot, collecting my paycheck, and thinking I'm not ever going to see my Social Security. Of course, when you're that young, you don't really think about reaching age 65. But we have to keep the promises that we make, and we have to quit allowing people to distract us with different things. Everybody wants to talk about cutting. Why would we cut our senior citizens who should be in the prime of their life, who should be enjoying their retirement? They can't even live off of Social Security. It needs to be increased for the cost of living. Seniors can't live on Social Security. So I would increase it somehow based on cost of living. Government agencies get cost of living COLA allowances. Senior citizens should too.
Thank you. Mr. Westmoreland.
Thank you. I believe at the present time it's $106,500 is the cap for your wages for Social Security. We don't know what it will be next year. The majority party left town without voting on the extension of the tax cuts. Or right now, most of your employers, in fact, all your employers don't even know what they will have to take out on your taxes when you start getting paid after January 1st. I'm against raising the retirement age or cutting the benefits. We don't have to do that. What we've got to quit doing is spending the surplus from Social Security. We have been spending that for years, and it supposedly goes into a lockbox. And what it is basically an IOU that the U.S. government owes the Social Security. Now, you know, that's like having $100 in your pocket, you take it out and you give it to somebody, and then you put an IOU in the other pocket, knowing you're not going to ever be able to pay it back. And so it's really disturbing to me that this has been brought up. But I do think that we have to understand and we have to look at other things, other ways of funding people that are going to be on Social Security, as Frank mentioned, that are younger, say under the age of 45 or under the age of 50 or under the age of 40, and give them some type of opportunity to do something about their own retirement without having to depend on the government to invest their money wisely, because we have not done it. We have been spending it. And so that lockbox, I don't know where it's at, but the reality of it is it doesn't exist. And we also need to look at the age requirements on when people can voluntarily draw their Social Security and when they have to retire and when they can only make X number of dollars if they get their Social Security at one age versus getting it at another age. There's some real inequities there that we need to look at, especially for a large group of our population that's getting older, including myself.
Thank you. Dr. Edwards.
Thank you. Much dialogue has been had on the perceived shortcomings of the public education system in our country. If elected, how do you plan to improve public education during your term?
All right, we'll ask Mr. Westmoreland to respond first to this question.
Well, public education to me is something that should be basically directed from the state and the local level, especially the local level. The large part of the money that comes to education comes from our state. The federal government, most budgets, and Doctor, I'm sure you can tell me what Carroll's is, but typically it's 5 to 7%. And there's a lot of cost that comes with that, trying to comply with the federal regulations. What I would like to see is more block grants come down through the government for education. If we're going to do that, to cut some of the bureaucracy out of Washington, give the money to the local people and take the strings off of it. You know, we have requirements of going to different grade levels. Not every child learns the same. And we're putting a lot of pressure on our public school teachers right now to do something that none of us could do. You don't give a client to an attorney and say, you must win this case. If you don't win this case, you're not going to get another client, or you're not going to get paid if you don't win this case, or if you don't win a certain percentage of those cases, especially if they don't have any choice of who their client's going to be. And that is where the federal government has put a lot of school teachers on a lot of public education. And so we need to look at that, but it's not up to the federal government. To me, it's up to the people of Carroll County and the local school systems to understand the children in their community. Some children have more need for free lunches. Some have more need for free breakfast, more after school. And to me, we've dictated way too much from the federal government level without any money to do what they've asked us to do.
Mr. Saunders.